girl came up to me and was like, "Are you gonna have Katie on your show?" And I was like, "I would love to. I'll reach out to her." And I was like, "Why do you want her on the show?" I was just curious.
Yeah,
And she said, "I
me
don't
too.
know. She just seems like a good person." I
Oh
was
my
like,
gosh.
okay, so
Oh, thank goodness.
so whatever you're doing, in
Oh,
your social media and however they know about you,
perfect.
you're doing a great job. So
Well, tell her thank you. I'm
yeah.
trying.
Will do. So I guess we could start with like where does this whole path in this pole vaulting thing start for you? Like,
Yeah. So I was a gymnast when I was younger, but only up until I don't know, third grade. So I got the basics, but I was not like a high level gymnast. But I think that gave me just a good body awareness and general strength and things like that. And then when I was in seventh grade, it was the first time we were able to do sports for our school. And it was the first time I was even introduced to track and field. And they took us to the high school the first day, and I saw the high schoolers pole vaulting. And I was like, that's what I have to do. I just knew that was what I wanted to be doing. And I begged the coaches for days because at that point, it was 2004 and women's pole vault had only been in the Olympics since 2000. So it was so new that, for girls, even in high school, to be doing it was kind of rare, let alone in middle school. And I begged the coaches for days. And finally, at the end of like day 3, they were just so annoyed. They let me go over and try it. And I knew that was it for me.
for sure. Yeah, and that's actually a really good point because like teaching like young people these days, especially young girls, it's like they don't realize like pole vaulting, like whenever I was like really young and you were really young, like it just didn't even exist. They didn't even have women's pole vaulting,
Right.
which is
Absolutely.
crazy.
Yeah. It's like I had never seen, I didn't even really know what it was. I had heard of it. Like it just seemed so, I didn't know what it was, but I saw them flying through the air and was like, yeah, that's what I need to be doing.
So you said you did gymnastics, and how long did you do that for?
Only for a few years. I got up to about level 4. So I had like a back handspring and, just basic kind of bar work and stuff like that. But it gave me a really good starting place for pole vault where I was just fearless and strong, and it just gave me a good foundation for it. So it wasn't anything that I was ever super competitive with. But I liked it, just not enough to go to the gym for 3 hours every day, 20,
Yeah.
every day of the week,
That's crazy though. It really
so.
is. And it's funny. I had a girl start a couple weeks ago, brand new to vaulting, and she was like, "Okay, so like how many days a week do we jump?" And I was like, two."
Yeah.
And she was like she was like, "What?"
Yeah.
I was like,
And I just wanted to do everything. I loved sports and I wanted to go skiing and snowboarding on the weekend with my families, and I wanted to play local soccer, and like I liked softball, and I just basketball, and pretty much every sport you could imagine I've played. Um, and so, sorry, someone was
"No,
knocking
you're
on the
fine."
door. It's pretty much every sport that I could imagine I wanted to play. I wanted to try it. With gymnastics, it was just so time consuming that you couldn't do that. And so I knew that it wasn't going to be something that I would stick with forever.
Right. And like I don't want to like bash gymnastics, but like that is the number one thing that I hear from like young
Yeah.
girls that come out of that life. They're like, and I'm talking about like seventh grade girls, eighth grade girls
Mm-hmm.
that are like, I can't take it anymore. And it's
Yeah.
like,
I mean, I
whoa.
was 7 years old and they were demanding 3 hours every single day after school. And it's just, I mean, I have nothing but respect for the gymnasts that do it because it is hard. I learned to hate the word conditioning at a very early age because of gymnastics. And so
Right.
um, it just, your heart really has to be in it to stick with it because it is tough. And I
Right.
just, I just wasn't at that level of commitment with anything at that age. So
Right. Right. So where is all this happening? Like what state? I don't even
Uh,
know. So
yeah, I'm from Ohio, Cleveland area, suburb of Cleveland. So yeah, we got a pretty snowy track season most of the time.
yeah,
We got to deal with, you know, like I said, most of the first meets that we had were in the snow
for
for
sure.
the
We're
first
we're
half of the
in
season.
Chicago, so
Right.
it's the same thing. It's like people are and that was really really difficult for me. I jumped, you know, at a decently high level in high school, and
Yeah.
I remember being like, dude, I only legitimately get like half a month of an outdoor season that is
Right.
actually worth jumping in. And like these people in California are jumping outdoors all year round.
Right. And Texas, it's like no wonder so many good vaulters come from Texas and California. But at the same time, it is amazing to me how many good vaulters come out of the Midwest and New York and like where it is miserably cold because, yeah, we don't get half a season. Like,
Right.
I remember my coach like sweeping snow off the runway.
Right.
You know, and I was jumping and I was the only person left, and a couple of my teammates were like bundled up in a blanket together, like that. That was
I I
half of my
know.
year every year.
It's crazy. I remember in college too, because I went to North Central College where my dad coached at, and that's in Naperville, which is a suburb of Chicago.
Yeah,
And I remember our rule was, hey, if it's above 40, then we're gonna jump outside. And like
yeah.
now I think about that, I'm like,
No
above
way.
40?
No
What
way.
the heck? That's
Uh-uh.
too much, man. And I mean, we would jump
If I
in.
could vault outside in like low 50s anymore.
I know, right? Yeah,
I'm
because where are you at
spoiled.
now? Where are you at
So
now?
I'm in Atlanta, Georgia now, in just a little north west of Atlanta, Georgia, and it it's very hot. I don't love the heat. I'll be honest, because I just grew up with, all four seasons, and the summer is not nearly that hot or humid you know in Cleveland. So
Right.
I had to get used to that quite a bit, but as a whole, it's really great weather for preventing injuries and whatnot.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you probably like your warm up is probably like cut in half during you know, whenever you're down there compared to up here. It's like that
Yeah.
was one thing that I think really at the towards the end of my career, I was like, why am I warming up? I'm warming up for like an hour. And
Yeah.
I and I would be like, where did that come from? Like
Right.
how
Four
did I
layers of clothing on while you do it.
yeah, and I would be like, you know, like by the time I take my first trip down the runway, I've been working out for an hour, you
Yep.
know, before this competition,
You're
and then
just
all
you're,
of a
you're just
sudden,
exhausted before you even start.
yeah, and I think that all stems from like, hey, like it's, you know, April in Illinois and I have to warm up for an hour in order to be able to really, you know, get warm and, you know, feel safe, you know, to jump or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So true.
it's
And
really crazy. Go
it's
ahead.
funny because I don't my body doesn't do well in the heat. I get overheated very quickly and I don't feel well. And at Sandy's meet, for example, this year, it was really hot and humid. And during the warm-ups, my coach was like, "How are you feeling? Like, are you okay?" And I'm like, "No, honestly, like I don't feel well. Like I'm so hot right now." And he's like, "Yeah, you're sweating more than everyone else." I'm like, "Do you believe me now? Like I'm not making this up. I just don't. My body physically rejects the heat, mostly the sun. I think when it's really sunny,
Yeah.
then it's bad. But
Yeah, I can remember times back in the day where I would just get like extremely like I don't know how to explain it besides just like over loose. Like
yeah,
where like my body was like Gumby and I was just and I was like not dizzy but like just kind of
yes,
like when I'm running down the runway I'm like I I I feel like I'm out of control. And I don't know if it was like an electrolyte imbalance or like what caused that, but it
yeah.
was
I
really
don't.
hard for me.
Right, I get that because I think I naturally run pretty tight. Like at most massage therapists that I go to are like, "You're really tight." I'm like, "Yeah, I think that's just normal." And so when I get hot and I loosen up a bit, like I don't know if I respond as well to that. I mean, you make it work and you figure it out. And I'm getting more used to the heat, which is good. But
For
yeah,
sure. And I think that that's important, like for your season too, because like back in the day, whenever you were, jumping in high school and jumping in college, like your season was during that springtime where you would, be up against like milder conditions, like milder temperatures. But
right.
now your season goes, what does it go through? Like on a normal year, it may go through like middle September or.
Yeah, normally it would go even, yeah, mid September. This year it was supposed to go mid September, early September. Last year was obviously really late, going into October. But yeah, we start competing probably about January, and obviously indoors is fine. But as far as outdoors, we'll go through the summer and through, yeah, like the bulk of the heat. And then last year in Doha, it was blisteringly hot in October. So it's good to at least be prepared for that. I know that I do well when it's cool out, so I don't have to prepare for that, but it's good to at least be prepared for the heat because it's
Right.
not something I deal with well
So
naturally. So
Renault just posted something about the heat in Doha. So is it next level heat?
yeah, it's unlike anything and I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and I visit my boyfriend in Gainesville, Florida often. It is it's unlike anything else. At night, I remember we were jumping, and so you think at night it's really not too bad. I was sweating so profusely that I was like splashing myself as I was running down the runway just from four laps. Like my sweat was like bouncing up and hitting my face, and I would have to wipe my entire body down, and I'd take one jump and it would have to do it all over again. Like Alicia has sticky and slipped off her pole, like in just doing a short approach jump. Like it's just so hot and humid there. It's just like you walk outside and it's just like hot blow dryers are just like blowing on you. It is so hot.
Hot blow dryers.
You
Yeah,
can't
no,
train during the day. You have to go at night because during the day it's unbearable.
yeah, that sounds insane. I was actually going to ask you about that, like with your grip. I don't know if you are like chalk or
I'm a chalk
sticky
girl.
or nothing. Okay.
I'm
Yeah, I
chalk.
think I think that probably like helps you whenever you're super super sweaty or if it's like super humid or something like that, right?
Yes, I know the girls that use sticky have talked about at meets when it's really humid that it's it's hard for them to grip the pole. Like in Monaco, the girls that used sticky were having a bit of an issue a couple years ago. So yeah, I I think there are definite benefits to sticky. And I know a lot that my coach Brad used it just because he was on tree trunks of poles, and it's harder to you got to have a really solid grip. But it when you deal with humidity like that, then it gets a little tricky.
Right, yeah, and that's the thing is that I forget what meet it was. It was a while ago. It was like a world championship or something where there was people that were having some big issues with the whole sticky. And the problem is that you have to like adjust your concoction of the sticky.
Yeah,
It's like a chemistry experiment like every
right.
track meet you go to. It's like crazy. I
Yeah,
messed around with it. I messed around with it, but whenever I was jumping. And
yeah,
at the end of the day, I was just like, you know what? Just use chalk.
yeah.
Sometimes I have to, like you said, though, like if it would, I remember one year, it was like this. Did you ever jump at the St. Louis like arch vault?
I
Or,
did not. I heard about it. It looked
yeah,
awesome, but
it was
I haven't
cool.
been there.
But it was super super hot. It's like
Yeah,
the 4th of July weekend or something like that. And I remember just being like, okay, all right, so I have this like bath towel and I have to wipe like my whole arm down, and then I have to
yeah.
take chalk and like chalk
All
my
up and
whole
down your
arm up
arms. Yes.
because the sweat would travel down to your hand while you were
Yep.
running.
Yep.
And I would be like, this is insane. So then I
Yeah.
was like, well, maybe I'll switch to sticky and then just get that going. And then I slipped out a couple times and I was like, yeah, I'm done with that.
Yeah.
No more sticky
Right. Each has their own pros and cons, but
for
for
sure.
me, it's like I know chalk works if ever I can put it in my carry on. And I know like with the spray sticky, especially, you can't bring that in a carry-on. So if your
Right.
bag gets lost, it's not easy to find more of. It's just, I think it's a little more consistent in that respect. Like I know I'll always have it. They have it at a lot of meets. And so it's like, I'll stick with that.
Yeah, I've seen people use extremely strong bonding agents to literally
Yes.
glue their hand into their grip. It's like, dude, you better
People
not run
get
through.
creative. Yes. People get really creative. I remember Mike Arnold had just, what was it? Beeswax or something. Like it was just this insanely like,
It's like pine tar mixed with
yes,
some other stuff. Yeah.
it was incredible. And he had stickier ones of it for when it was, yeah,
Oh
colder
yeah.
weather. And
All types of stuff.
like you can't even let go of the pole. I'd be afraid I couldn't let go of the pole because I've seen videos and jumps of athletes where they're going over and they have to like literally throw their pole off their hand to let go. And it's just
I'm pretty sure it was Derek Miles that I saw. Um, I'm pretty sure it was him. It was at the Gill Vault.
okay.
And it was back when they had the Gill Vault. And I'm pretty sure he went like this, and you just heard a big, and I was like, what the heck was that? And then I think he came off the pit. I could be getting this wrong, and his tape was on his hand. The
Oh my
tape, the
gosh.
tape had literally like ripped off of the pole, and I was
Gosh.
like, that's legit right
Yeah.
there. That is some legit
Right.
sticky. That's the good stuff.
Seriously.
So,
I
so you
know
met
Brad's talked about like having to, yeah, just literally throw the pole off, but
right.
it's
Well, speaking
crazy.
of Brad, what's going on down there? Because this is like kind of news to me. I don't know if this has been going on for a long time, but what's going on?
Yeah, so we have a pretty solid sized group now. There are 7 of us right now. And so it's me, Robin Bone, John Prater, and Kristen Brown that were with him the past year, couple years. And then we just added Natalie Uy from the Philippines, and Chloe Cunliffe, um, who's the high school national record holder out from Seattle. And it's a really good group. It's fun. We moved down there. Brad got into chiropractic school at Life University. He was coaching up at Washington State, and so when he said he was going to go down, I I'm very much of the mindset if it's not broken, don't fix it. And it was going very well working with him. So I knew I needed to follow him. And so, yeah, it's been really great. It's been a really good situation for me. I guess I can't speak for everybody, but it seems like everybody else kind of agrees. So, yeah,
Yeah, for sure. No, you
it's
guys
been fun.
definitely, it seems like you got some really good talent out of there.
Yeah.
And so you were training in Washington with Brad,
Mhm.
and then he went to Cairo school, and then you moved to Georgia.
Yes. So he got
Wow.
into chiropractic school at Life University in Marietta, Georgia, and so that's where we train predominantly. But it's nice because there's an indoor facility that we're able to use. It's not too far, in Cartersville. It's Georgia Pole Vault. We've trained a little bit at the Atlanta Track Club. They have a pole vault pit in their little back room, and so it's nice to have options. The weather's usually pretty nice, and we're outside a lot, but we do have some really good options for all
That's
kinds of
awesome.
training. Yeah, it's a good setup right now.
Good for you guys. That's really cool. I mean, Brad was, you know, just big
Brad.
time, like one of my
Brad was Brad.
heroes.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a monster. Just, I mean, whenever I was young, like him coming up, I remember watching the first Neo Vault, seeing him on there, and I was just like, that dude is going to take over. And he just, it was so fun to watch him compete. See, but then it seems like a really, really nice person too.
Yeah.
Seems like
He's
yeah,
Yes, and it's fun learning from him. Like obviously my vaulting is getting better, but that is a direct result of my mentality and the mindset. I was a very emotional and fragile type of vaulter. I was timid and I was anxious and I was afraid of pole vaulting. Like I didn't know what I was doing. I just ran down, threw my hands up, hope for the best, and that's you're not gonna love to pole vault when that's how you pole vault because it's scary.
Yeah, for sure.
And and so he just totally tackled the mental side of it and taught me how to focus on the runway. And he just, by doing that, and every time I come down I'm trying to execute things the same way, it just creates this confidence. He's big on real versus fake confidence. Like before, I would need a tap every jump in practice, and I needed to feel good to jump high, and it's like it's not real confidence. Real confidence is knowing I can take it up no matter how I'm feeling, no matter what day it is, no matter, like, it might be a smaller pole and that's fine, but it's like then when you go to a competition with that sort of confidence, it it's just a different,
Yeah.
it's a different ball game, and it's turned me into a more confident person outside of the pole vault too.
So
And
now
so
you're
it's
just
been,
like a pole vaulting savage now.
yeah.
Now you just come down there and just hit it no matter what.
To
That's
be
honestly
determined, but
that is the best. That's the pinnacle. I mean, the pinnacle of pole vaulting and like why we do it is like when you're running down the runway and you are clicking and like I would remember getting to my mid mark and just being like, that's over, baby. Like
yeah.
I am hammering this thing. and
Yes.
and and then you and then you go and you just have like a superior confidence and a superior control over what you're doing. That is the greatest feeling in the entire
Yes.
world, and that's what we're all chasing, and if there's
Right.
somebody who can put you in that mentality on a
Yeah.
consistent basis, I would follow him from
Yeah.
Washington to Georgia too.
Right. Well, and I remember the first Diamond League final I went to after working with him for, that year. I just remember being there looking around going, I feel like I have some secret. Like, I feel like, because I knew I was going to come down, take it up every time. And at that point, I wasn't jumping super high. So, like, there were girls that were just outright jumping better than me. But I was like, I know how to always have a good day now, or how to like make that happen. Obviously, things happen, but it just, I felt like I had some weird secret. Like, it can't be this easy. Like, it can't, this can't be
Right.
real. But then you go into a meet and you just like, no, it is. He explains it in that it's a choice. You either choose to step on the runway and execute things the same way every time, or you don't. And when you look at it that way, I always kind of joke about that, like, oh, it's a choice. But it is. And myself included, people make it really emotional and scary and like, anxious. And it doesn't have to be. It can be just as, I don't want to say easy, but it can be just as like effortless, I guess, as running, or because running's not easy. But
Yeah.
like it doesn't have to have the fear behind it that I always thought that it did. And it was like, okay, now I know how I'm going to jump high, because I always felt like I could, but you can't see the actual path until something like that.
Right. Yeah. And the way that my dad, whenever we were younger, me and my brothers were younger, I like specifically remember him always telling me, like, hey, if you're going to step between the white lines, if you're going to step between those white lines, then it's game time. And you can't be nice, Jake, like, hey, everybody, what's
Yeah.
going on? You have to turn into a different animal. You just have
Yeah.
to turn and once you get off the pit, you can do whatever, whatever.
Right.
But then when it's time to step between those lines again, it's go time, and that is a mentality. Like, if you can find somebody, and people really, I mean, our event is super, super technical, obviously. Like, there are so many things that you have to do
Yes.
correctly,
100%.
but you could have the best, technical model coach in the world. And if they're not able to give you that gas for that tank,
Yeah.
it's going
The
to be
blow.
hard, like it's going to be
Yeah.
hard to be able to, convert that into jumping high and just having fun, like
Absolutely.
that is a great gift. And it
Yeah.
it kind of, it isn't a secret, like obviously
No,
we're
yeah,
talking
it's
about it, but it's
right.
like you
It's
feel like
common knowledge, like, right? It should be anyways. Like,
it should be.
it's
Yeah.
who can, that's the thing about pole vault. There's no secrets. It's just like who can get on the biggest pole and jump high. It's like there's no like manipulation tactics. It's like everyone knows how
Right.
to the equation to jumping high.
Right.
Um,
And that develops like that attitude, what that does is that develops confidence and
mhm.
most importantly, consistency.
Yeah,
Like because in pole vaulting, like you could catch a flyer and jump really high. Anybody could do that. Anybody could catch that one jump and be like, "Oh man, I had that day," like,
yeah,
but especially at the level that you're at, like you need to have consistency because you were talking about earlier how
yeah,
it's like, maybe these people were jumping higher than me or whatnot, but if you're consistent, you can actually do really, really well and you can place really well against some of these people who may jump higher than you if
yeah.
you're consistent like that,
Right.
in my opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's funny that you said that about your dad and how it's like once you get on the runway, it's like you basically need to be an animal.
Hey,
Like you need to
yeah.
not care. Brad actually sat down with me before the 2018 season and was just like, you need to not care. You need to start beating these girls and not caring what they think because I've always been like a people pleaser and I never wanted to ruffle feathers. And it's not that I didn't want to win. It was just, I think he could sense I just had like a slight timidness in that, like, oh, well, like, yeah, it's okay that Mary beat me. She's my friend. It's okay. And he's like, you need to start like beating these girls and not caring what they think. And I'm like, oh, okay. And that was the year that I then jumped, 91. And it just, I'm like, oh, like that, like he's creating this, like, this inner confidence of like, I love my competitors. I genuinely love my competitors, but when I step on the track, I want to beat them every time. So and you can have both. Like,
100%. And I
yeah,
think that the best way to read that uh that confidence in somebody is I always tell my athletes like I can tell in your eyes when you're running down the runway. Like whenever you watch, if you've never seen Brad Walker jump, you should watch Brad Walker jump because if you look at him run down the runway, it's like I do not want to get in front of that.
he's
Like,
a freight train.
you
He's
know,
not stopping.
right. And I watched your
Yeah.
492 jump and your 501 attempt before we got on today. And you can see that. Like, it's just like in your eyes, it's like, I am making this happen. Like, don't get in front of me because I'll run you over.
Yeah.
Like please don't step on the runway. And that is it's all in an attitude. And that it really is a gift.
Yeah.
So what kinds of training are you guys doing down there? Like right now, it's like such a weird year.
Yeah.
What is your I guess
So
I'm what's your schedule like? What are you preparing for?
yeah, so we're basically approaching this coming year as if things will go on as scheduled, as normal as they could be. So right now we're just in our preseason phase. We are just starting to get into weights. We were doing a lot of just body weight lifting, and now we're starting to incorporate more actual weights with it. But we've been doing endurance power workouts, which they're so hard. Um,
Right.
but yeah, just combining sprints with, well, not sprints, I would say strides, because we're not like full like speed yet, but just like sprints or striding with exercises in between with minimal rest. So I think a lot of people have done diagonal workouts like X's across like the infield, and it's just, you stride the diagonal and then you jog the other corner, stride it again, and it's just, you do several of those, no rest. And that, like, so it's just doing things to kind of get the lungs going and get a base endurance, but still incorporating power. So it's not just go out and run 20 minutes, it's alternating like speed with, we'll do 100 and 200 circuits where we'll have exercises in between. So um, yeah, it's pretty much my least favorite part of the year.
Yeah.
Um, but it's necessary. And when you do complete it well, it gives you a, just a different kind of confidence too. It just like adds to that confidence of, okay, when we actually get on the runway, it will be like I'm strong and I'm capable of more than I think I am. Um,
And
but
the
this year is,
resiliency of your body too.
yes, you like, you can just accomplish more than you ever thought. That the garden clash vault that I did last year with Kat and Alicia, I was so tired, and just knowing how tired I was, but I could still keep jumping. I had never pushed myself like that before, and it was by far like the hardest thing I've ever done. But it just, when I then went to Sandy's meet, for example, and felt like crap, it was like, you can still jump. Like, your body will give you more than you think. Like, when you think you're at your most exhausted point, you still have a little bit more in the tank. And so it just kind of opened up my mind to like, oh, I am capable of a lot more than I think I am.
Yeah, and I think if you never get yourself, I actually had somebody on the podcast a couple weeks ago, Tony Holler, and he's a like he's a very polarized coach, like as far as training goes, like
Okay.
he does like super super high intensity, super super low volume, like, so he's
Yep.
just focused on just speed. Like, if you're
Okay.
not doing something, if you're not moving fast, you don't do anything. Like, so
Hmm.
that's like a super, kind of polarized view. And that
Yeah.
sort of training, is making a resurgence. And they've been doing that
Yeah.
training for since the 80s in the Soviet Union. But
Yeah.
the thing is I think there is something to be said for pushing your body and conditioning your body to where mentally you can go to that place and you can be like, hey, remember whenever I was really down in that workout and I couldn't
Yes.
breathe and my heart was just clicking, like
Yeah.
crazy, and then I was still able to perform at a high level. So, like, there is something to be said about your confidence, with doing some sort of conditioning work in the preseason, I think, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And I do think it gives you a good foundation to build upon. Knock on wood, I've been lucky and not really dealing with injuries. And I do think a part of that is the training that I've had. We'll have a hard day, and then we'll have an easy day, or like a rest day, and we'll alternate pretty much every day of the week. And so just the combination of that and getting that base where you're not 100% max effort in a speed sense or in a weightlifting sense, but you're just kind of building that base. Like, we're doing a lot of like 4x8s in the weight room as we start incorporating weights where it's a little bit lower weight, but just kind of getting the muscles into it. And I found that I am a lot less sore. I'm still sore, but like,
Yeah.
the first day in college, like pole vaulting, where they put you in the weight room and throw everything at you, and you cannot even sit down without like whining. Like,
Right.
I haven't had that in a very long time, and I think it's
Yeah.
just a good gradual build into. We're big in the weight room, so it definitely, we get to the high intensity stuff, but
I was
we
gonna
let
say,
our
because
bodies build up to that.
Brad was a he was throwing around weight.
Yeah.
He was throwing it around.
Well, he was somebody that once he could feel something once, technically, he could always do it. His mind body connection was like unlike anything else. And I think he, in coaching me and coaching college kids, he's starting to realize, oh, like, people don't, that doesn't, not everybody works like that. Like, he just thinks everybody thinks like him.
Yeah.
Like, you are an outlier. Like, you are incredible, but you are an outlier, and that's why you were one of the best ever. And I think I kind of bridged that gap to then the college kids, and like, it's obviously, that is the difference between the elites and just good athletes, is that being able to tell your body exactly what you want it to do and it doing that.
Right.
And so, but so because of that, he then spent most of his time in the weight room so that he could become the best athlete he could be. How fast, how strong, how powerful could he get, so that when he was coming down that runway, the more force he had, the bigger the pole he was going to get on. And he always came down trying to blow through the pole. That was
Right.
every pole that was in his hand, he was trying to blow through.
Right.
And so the more speed you have, the more mass you have, muscle strength, whatever, you're going to start blowing through stronger, stiffer poles and get tossed really high.
And that's the goal is, to, get as big as pole as possible. And I mean, it's just
Right.
common physics. I mean, if you weigh this much and the
Right.
pole's going to toss this much,
Yep.
that's just how it works.
But
Um,
people
s-
like to live in their comfort zones. They're like, oh, I love this pole. This is my money pole. It's like, no, your money pole is the next pole. Like
right.
that's the
Yeah.
good things happen when you get on a pole you've never touched before. Like that,
Right.
like that's just how it works. So if you talk to, I think a lot of the guys, even like Renault, when he cleared his world record, it was a pole he had never touched before. Like Tim Mack, I was just eating after a meet with Brad and him, and he was like, good things happen when you get on your biggest pole. Like you just that because that's what your body is needing that day. Um,
Yeah,
so
no, I mean, that's how it goes. That's pole vaulting in a nutshell right there. Get on the biggest pole possible. But
yeah,
boys and girls, do not try to get on the biggest pole possible unless it's the right time.
do it safely. Like we have lots of sessions where we're on really small poles blowing through to feel positions.
Yeah.
And then obviously they're like if you're blowing through so much you can't actually accomplish anything, then you go up. But we always keep the standards buried. And then it's
Mhm.
like in a competition, if the standards are buried or like you're up at a PR and you sneak them in a little bit, like I've never had my standards closer than 70 in a competition ever.
Wow, that's
Um,
actually interesting.
well, since working with Brad, I will
Okay.
say, since working with Brad. But yeah, when I done 92, they were at 80.
They were at 80?
They're buried.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's
And
crazy.
same with 91, actually. And so, like, I'm not saying you shouldn't bring them in. Obviously, there's a time and a place, but for me, it's like, okay, we get to all we can out of every pole. Like, Brad wants me to make it a pure blow through where I'm completing the whole jump. I'm not flagging off, I'm not falling off the pole. And so then if the pole is past vertical and I am blowing into the bar, because there are a lot of jumps that can be saved that are blow throughs by just lining it up and committing to it. And
For sure.
then it's a blow through make, and then you go up a pole and you keep the standards the same.
The
That's
blow through make is the greatest jump, especially as a coach too. Like as a
yes.
coach, it's like, oh, they snuck over it. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Okay,
And now
cool,
we know
cool.
exactly what to do for the
Yes.
next.
Now we're gonna move you up, and you are going to bomb this next bar.
Yes.
And that's the blow through make, man. That is the greatest for a coach for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting though. But I think if you've never seen Katie's 92 jump or her 501 attempt, you got to watch that, because I think, like when you're clicking and whenever you're having those days where it's like, man, I'm just, doing, I'm crushing it today. I feel like those days your standards could be at 60 or they could be at 80. You're
Yeah.
you're arcing the bar, you're not
Yep.
up and down height,
Yeah.
like you're flowing and you're really just catching every single little piece of that pole. And
Yeah.
that is like always my goal, is to get our kids to be like, hey man, I could have your standards at 60, 70, 80, but if you're clicking, it doesn't really matter. Like you're
Yeah.
really, really arcing over that bar. And that's what it looked like you were doing that day. It just looked like one of those days where it was just like, that was
Yeah. And
awesome.
and thank you. We had planned for a very fast progression. It was like, okay, come in at 60, jump a 75, go to 92. And that was like boom, boom, boom. And so it was that day, it was just like, I don't want to mess around. I'm like, I know I'm ready to jump a personal
Hmm.
best. And like, I just don't want to waste my time on these lower bars right now. There's a time and a place, and it's, I jumped 80 in the 80s a couple times that season. So it was like, let's just go.
Yeah.
Let's go. And I think I forget the number, but there have been studies where like your best jumps are like around number 6. And
I would say
so
that's pretty
and
accurate. Yeah.
and so then if it's like, okay, if we clear 92 in, you know, 3, 4, 5, then we can have some of the best attempts at the next bar.
And you're talking
Um,
about 6 jumps as in 6 competitive jumps, not warm-ups?
yes,
Okay.
yes, correct. Yeah, yeah. And well, and with the standards that so every meet, the warm ups, my goal is to get on the biggest possible pole I can in warm ups. Like it's not just, oh, feel it out, just make sure things are good. It's get to the biggest pole you can. And for me, I gauge that, with the standards at 80 up around a personal best, I'm maybe just skimming it on the backside. That's the pole that I start on. And then when the bar is several centimeters lower, um, you can be on that pole for quite a while with the standards safe, like buried safely. And then as you get to some of those higher heights, like when I jumped 91, I was on 2 poles the entire competition.
Right.
And it was because I got to the biggest pole I ever had in warm-ups. And we just kept the standards at 80 the whole time. And just once I cleared 75, it was a blow through make. And Brad's like, okay, well, let's go up to the 1830. And so that's, with this, when I say like blow through me, like you want to get to the biggest pole you can, like it's safely and with the standards
Yeah,
buried.
right, right.
But
Let's
that's kind
just
of our game plan to eliminate variables.
Yeah, and that way you can develop a rhythm because your best days that you have are the days where, like, because if you were moving up poles every single jump, like it's hard to create a rhythm like that.
Yes.
But if it's
Yep.
like, okay, I'm on this pole in warm-ups and then I'm going to use this for my first 3 jumps and then, hopefully I blow through and I can go up for a new PR,
Yeah.
then you're in the catbird seat. You're like in a
Right.
good space where you're going to create a good rhythm throughout the competition and then you're going to be able to, set yourself up for success a lot
Yeah.
easier, in my
And what
opinion.
I found is like the only things that can happen, and this is obviously dependent on your consistency, like you're coming down and hitting it the same way every time. The only 2 things that can happen is it's either a blow through miss with the standards buried, you have to go up a pole. Like that's your only option, or it's a make and you're on that for a while. And so normally it's a make and I'm on that for a while, but it's it just again eliminates a variable of, okay, well the standards were at 70, so do I push them back? Do I, you know, like do I just jump a little bit more efficiently? Like so with the standards at 80, it does kind of take away some of the like anxiety of
Yeah, and
making decisions.
it sounds like you are kind of like taking all of the variables and kind of like narrowing, like taking away as many variables as you can. Like
Trying to,
if you
yeah.
have the standards at 80 and it's like, hey, we're gonna try to take that variable out, so then all you got to really worry about is your pull and your grip. And then
Yes.
let's say that you're like, okay, you know what, we're going to keep our grip, relatively the same, then you kind of
Yep.
take that variable away. And then you only have really one variable that you have to worry about, or, well, I should say there are a million variables, but
There are, and you have to look at how you're jumping and like, that there are, but it does help take away some for sure.
right, for
Yeah.
sure, for sure. So where did you like, so you started in Ohio and you went to high school in Ohio, and then what was your level of success in high school?
High school was good for me. I by my senior year, I jumped 13 feet, which at that time was, I think, the 5th highest height of a graduating senior that year in the nation. Um, and like back then, that was good. Now it's
Yeah,
like
for
nothing.
sure.
But like, and so I broke the D1 state record and won the state meet. So that was a really good year for me, but then I struggled in college quite a bit. So
Yeah.
um,
Was Mary the national record holder at that time?
she was the first girl to ever jump 14 feet. I don't know if someone had done that since because she was 4 years older than me. Like
Okay.
she graduated out of college when I came in as a freshman.
Right,
So
right.
I never saw her through college, but she was the first person to jump 14,
Yeah,
first girl
yeah.
to jump 14 feet in high school. And I don't know if she kept that through my entire year, I'm not sure, but
Right, right. So then you went to college and you said you struggled a little bit in college. What's
yeah.
going on with that? Where'd you go? What happened?
I went to the University of Dayton first, which is a small D1 school in Ohio. And I just, like I said before, I've always been afraid to pole vault. I never really like knew what I was doing. I was good at it, but I just told myself like run faster and everything will happen.
Yeah.
and, and so then I went to college and my coach started making a bunch of changes and I just wasn't ready for it. I was the type of vaulter that needed my coach right there, and like I music and I was just very temperamental, and I was very emotional and anxious, and
So
so
did that what did that, sorry to interrupt. Did that
yeah,
like manifest itself in like inconsistency or like were you
no,
pretty
no,
consistent?
just irrational thoughts.
Okay.
I was just like irrational, pessimistic thoughts. Like it just with all this change, and then we had months of training without competing. I just I had always needed adrenaline to
Hmm.
kind of like get myself going, and I
Yeah.
competed myself into shape. And you compete a lot in high school because we had, indoor meets, and then you're competing what twice a week in high school. So I never
Right.
really I would practice at my clubs, and that was really fun. I was around friends, and so that was easy to kind of like jump there. But then I'd go somewhere new, no one from my high school had gone there, so it was a totally new atmosphere. And I wasn't the best by any means anymore. But you go into college and 13 feet isn't going to get you to nationals. It's even at that time. And so it it was it was just a lot of change all at once, and I wasn't ready for it. And I just, yeah, I really struggled. I think I was somebody that needed all kinds of like positive reinforcement to do well. And it was a lot of training without any feedback with competitions. And so I just started to just get bad run through problems, and I ran through all the time. It was
Okay.
frustrating for everyone involved.
Yeah, that's a hard one. When that
Yeah.
bites you, man, that's hard.
And I wish I had known then, I wish I had figured out how to think on the runway and execute things every time, um, just with cues. That's the biggest thing Brad's taught me is cueing, and just it's those one or two like actions that you're actually trying to do, and I just didn't have that, and so I was just lost in the abyss of doubt. Like if that makes
You were
sense.
just
Like
like running down and hoping that it worked.
yeah, knowing when I started I wasn't taking it up, because it was just like you can't hope that you're going to take it up. And so it got progressively worse and worse. And then that coach ended up leaving after my sophomore year, and so I transferred to Ashland University. And that coach was, when I went to D1, I just put all this pressure on myself. Like the coach was nice and knowledgeable. Like it wasn't really anything on the coach. It was just I just wasn't ready for any of it. And
Yeah, for sure.
I liked my comfort zone, and that really took me straight out of it. And so then when I went to Ashland, it's Division 2. It just taught me that internal motivation, because the coach was a volunteer coach, and old he was a Vietnam fighter pilot, and just this awesome guy that just didn't like he was like a grandpa, like he just loved everyone. But he he always joked like, if you do well, they'll double my salary. Like he's volunteering. Like he was just there because he wanted to be there, and it just made me realize like, oh, like how bad do I want to do this? And so we just started from short approach, really small pulls. Like it was probably a painful process to watch, because like my coach at Dayton, we'd do a couple jumps from short approach. We'd be like, okay, that's great. Let's go back. Let's go up in grip. Let's do the, and what any coach would say. But the moment you change anything, I would just turn off. And so he was super patient. My coach at Ashland was very patient. And I had just started to figure it out again and just get off the ground consistently from short approach when I got mono, and it took me out. And I think that kind of just that it created that motivation again, because it was like, oh, I got a taste of it again. What it was of getting off the ground, and it was fun again. And
Right.
so at the end of that year, I ended up qualifying for D2 nationals from short approach. And I think at that point just I had gotten a confidence in myself of like, okay, I want to jump higher more than I'm afraid of it now. And so then that next year we went back to full approach, and it was still there, like that like
Yeah.
anxiousness, and my coach had to give me a tap every jump. But I ended up my senior year winning indoor and outdoor nationals and jumping 14.6. It was the D2 national record at that time, which Kristen
Dang.
Hickson, now Leland, beat the next year. But
Okay, yeah, that's wild. So you went to a Division II school, and most of these athletes, are like, well, I'm going D1, coach, going D1,
I
scholarship and
get it.
all, and it's
I
like,
get it.
and
I
I get
had
it
that
too.
mentality. I really never considered a D2 school. And I actually got a bit of slack for like not for not choosing like a Big Ten school or an SEC school, or because I could have.
Hmm.
And I chose a small D1 school, but that was where I felt like I needed to be. And so like going D2 was just not even, it's like, there's no
Yeah,
way. And you just have to realize it doesn't matter, because it's all the same everywhere you go. And if you jump, 15 feet in D1, D2, D3, like it's the same everywhere.
for
And
sure.
so you just have to go where your gut is like, this is where I need to be.
Yeah, and you need to take into account, all types of different things, like family. If you are close with your family, you need to, take that into account. Like for
Right.
me, I didn't realize, how much I loved where I grew up until I left. I went to University of Alabama my freshman year on scholarship, and was yeah, D1, D1, on a scholarship, and
Yeah.
walking around in the hallways your senior year in high school, it's like, man, this is the greatest, but then all of a sudden you get down there and it's like, all right, nobody really understands me.
You're
Like
a
I'm
small fish in a big
yeah.
pond. Yep.
And then I was like, you know what? It's not so bad in Plainfield, Illinois. I actually kind of like it there. And then
Yeah.
I moved back and ended up doing well at a Division III school,
Yeah.
so no athletic scholarship. And guess what? The cool part about our sport is, actually I don't know if it's the same anymore, but I used to compete in Division I meets, whenever I was at a Division
Yep.
three school, like I would
Yeah.
go and do those things. And so
Mm-hmm.
like you said, it's an objective sport.
Yeah.
If you jump those heights, you jump those heights. I qualified for
Right.
US nationals indoors and outdoors my senior year because I jumped 550. So if you jump
Right.
550, at a Division III school, you can still go to the best competition in the United States if you want,
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
So
And
it's
that year that I won, I had jumped at our national meet. Uh, I won with 440, and the D1 meet, they won with 440. Now they went to 445 and we went to 450. Why they went 10 centimeters when it was that high is
right.
beyond me. But like that's absurd to me. But it always makes me wonder, like, oh, if we'd only gone 5 centimeters, could I? But like, it's the same height. Like, we tied the best of the best in college, so it just,
For sure.
it doesn't matter, because it's just about the height or the times or the distance you throw or jump. It it's
You
the
can do
same
it all,
across the
and
board.
it's not like we're playing basketball where, like, the level of competition is completely different, like
Right.
it's
Mm-hmm.
we're at the end of the day we're part of a individual team sport,
Yes.
and that's, you are, competing against yourself and that height
Mm-hmm.
that you want. But
Yeah.
anyway, so then after you got through that, you graduated, and then you started on this kind of this professional conquest, you
Yeah.
know, so how did that look like at the beginning? Because that I went through that. I jumped
Yeah.
550 in college, and then so that was like just high enough to where it's like, hey, I could get invited to Drake
Right.
or like these elite
Uh-huh.
meets. And I was like, man, this is really awesome, but like super nerve-wracking. And I dug myself a huge hole because I
Yeah.
really got into comparing myself to other people.
Yeah.
And I
100%.
constantly was looking at leaderboards. Luckily there
Yeah.
wasn't very much social media back then.
Yeah.
But I constantly was like, oh, he jumped that. Oh my gosh. Oh, you know, and I would like be like, okay, well, now I got to jump this. And I
Yeah.
really dug myself a hole. Did you go through anything like that or a learning curve for this whole thing?
Yeah, I definitely struggled. Mine was a little different. So my first year out, I did well. I did set a new personal best. I think I ended up jumping 450 by the end of that year. I moved down to Knoxville, Tennessee, and started working with Roman Bacharnikov, and it was a good setup. I was the only one training with him though, and I think that first year it was good, but I just wasn't quite ready to be like all in. Like I was always kind of like one footed, and I would like he was a great coach, but I would just push back a little bit, and I wanted to kind of be in control. That's how I'd always trained, was like I was the one in control, um, and so that's the second year I ended up getting mono in the fall, in like right before, I would say November,
Second round of
maybe
mono?
even December. That was the first time I got. Oh wait, no,
Okay.
no, I'm sorry, I didn't get mono. I got the flu. You're
The
right.
flu.
You're
Okay.
right.
I was like, dang.
No, no, no. You're right. I got mono in college. It was the flu that was like killing people back in like
Oh, the
2018.
swine flu?
It wasn't swine flu. It was because swine flu was back like more when I was in high
College?
school, I want to say, or college. But it was this flu that was just it was terrible, and I got so sick. And it takes a lot for me. I don't get like sick very often, and I lost a ton of weight.
Oh,
Um,
jeez.
and so then I got back in it okay. And but like I was struggling at that point. I was not super happy in Knoxville. Um, didn't have like a great roommate situation. Like it was just all these things, and I was homesick, and like it was just a bunch of things kind of adding up. And then I went to Reno, no heighted. And then after that, I got pictures from the photographer back, and I was like mortified with how I looked in them. Like I thought I looked really good because I was in a sports bra and like whatever. And I just come off of having this horrible flu where I was, throwing up and whatever. Like, of course, I'm not going to be in the best shape of my life. But
Right.
so that actually kind of like spiraled me into like just like this body image issue and like not eating properly. And so I really struggled with that for the next few months, I would say. And then I've done like a podcast with Sean Francis on that one. But yeah,
And I actually kind of wanted I that was one of the things that I wanted to kind
yeah,
of dive into too, if you don't mind. Like
yeah, absolutely.
I know that's a sensitive subject, but
No,
I
I'm very
have
like passionate about it because it affected me so much. And so it's something I want to talk about so that other athletes don't kind of get trapped in it the way that I did.
for
But
sure. So what I see like on ground zero working with young kids, young pole vaulters all the time, especially lots of young ladies, they they will associate a body weight with success.
yeah.
Like so that's one thing that I see a lot where it's just like,
Mhm.
and I did that myself too. Like I was like, well, I jumped 550 the first time at 175.
Yeah.
So, and I'm 6'4", 6'4",
That's
175.
lean.
That's like
That's
freaky,
very
man.
lean.
And I was like the rest of my career, not the rest of my career, but like probably the next 3 or 4 years, I was like, well, if I want to jump 550 again, I got to be 175.
Yeah.
And as you get older, it's
Yeah.
like, hey man, so that's one thing that I see. And then I also just see kind of just the classic comparing, you know, yourself to other people. Well,
Yep.
she jumps this high and she looks like this
Yeah.
and things like that. So
That
those are
was,
the two things I see.
yeah, that was where I was at, was I was seeing, all these beautiful, phenomenal in shape athletes, pole vaulters that I looked up to, saying, "Oh my gosh, she's jumping so high and she has like a perfect six pack." And I, I was always lean, but I would say like it takes a lot for me to be defined, and so I like didn't really have that definition, especially at that age, like in my stomach. Like if they say it takes until probably your mid 20s for women to really like lose like their quote unquote baby fat or whatever. And so I just I didn't feel super confident being in a sports bra and shorts like next to these other women, but I was like, oh man, if I just looked like that, then I would jump really high. Instead of maybe if I eat the right way and work really hard, my body will do that as a result, or look that way as a result. And so yeah, when I saw those pictures, it just, I mean, it crushed me, because I was like, that year I was like, I'm going to compete in a sports bra to fit in like everyone else. And that's what's going to motivate me to eat really well, so that like I look good. And then that I'll jump high as a result, because, all these girls that look good, they're jumping high. So I had a very backwards logic with that. And, and so when I saw that picture, it was like, I have to just cut calories left, right, center. I had this idea in my head the year before that like I needed to eat 1,200 calories. Like that was the number. I don't know where that number came
Wow.
from, but it was this, it just,
That's crazy.
and then when I met with a nutritionist later that year, he's like, "You eat how many calories?" Like, he's like, "I don't care if you do absolutely nothing that day. Like, that's not nearly enough." He wanted me to eat more, around 2,000. But he's like, "Let's just maybe not double your calories overnight, but we got to bump you up. Like, you can't sustain what you're doing. Like, you don't want to be at a caloric deficit." Well, so I got a basic kind of meal plan from him. Fast forward a few months later, I see these pictures. And so I just take that like meal plan that he gave me and just take it to the extreme, where I was basically just eating a protein bar and an apple for like 4 out of my 6 meals a day, which is absurd.
Mm-hmm.
And the other meal, breakfast, would just be like egg whites with like some oatmeal, and like it just wasn't enough. And I was down to probably 120 something pounds at 5'8", which is just way too lean. Like there's just, and I still at that point felt like I could be leaner. Like it was just a very, very flawed logic.
Right.
And I just thought that would make me jump higher. And I just had no energy. And I was very lucky that I wasn't an injury prone person, because I would have gotten hurt in a second if I was. We were very much under training. Roman was a big advocate for, under training. You want to feel fresh, you don't want to injure yourself. Like, and so I was lucky. If I was doing what I'm doing now, there's no way.
Right.
But I just took it upon myself to, I said, I never want my diet to be the reason I didn't succeed in this sport. And so I just went crazy, and I was obsessed with it. I was constantly thinking about how I was going to cut out calories, what I was going to eat at the next meal, how I was going to like manage it. If we were going out to dinner, I would just look at the menu beforehand and like have my plan of, okay, you're only going to get this.
I
And if
know.
I felt like I ate too much, I would like try to, like I would do burpees, I would do jumping jacks like later at night to like burn it off. And it was awful. And I did that by myself. Like I didn't have anyone telling me you have to be this weight or this body fat percentage or anything. I just took that on myself. And so now when I hear there are coaches that are telling their athletes, you have to be this body fat percentage or this weight, like in the pole vault, especially, because I mean, I don't think it should happen in any sport, but in the pole vault, it drives me crazy, because women, girls, if you give them a number, they will go to any sort of length to make that number happen. And oftentimes it's not healthy. And why? Like, it doesn't make sense to me, because I'll tell you, I have not gotten body comp done in years. The only numbers that I measure are the weights that I lift, how fast I am. I mean, Brad can gauge that better than I can, but he sees how well I'm moving and how high I'm jumping, or the pulls that I'm getting on, like the pulls that
Right.
I'm moving. And those are the only numbers that really matter. I think it's important to have an idea of what you weigh. Like I do weigh myself every so often just to get an idea, but like right now, Brad's trying to get me to gain weight. Like he wants me to gain weight so that I have some fat reserve to like tap into when we're doing these crazy hard, preseason workouts.
Right.
Because if you don't, it'll go into your muscle, and that's where fatigue, injury, all that happens. And so luckily I never got so far gone in it that I couldn't get out of it and save myself. I think slowly but surely started to put my worth into jumping high and not caring as much about like if I was in a sports bra or a tank top or whatever. And that slowly helped me get out of it. But then working with Brad, where he's like, who cares what you like? The only thing that matters is how you're jumping. Like it's so
Right.
refreshing being with a coach that like doesn't care. He's always talking about like gaining weight rather than like he never is like, I think we should lean you out a little bit. Like he doesn't he wants more mass to his athletes to be really powerful. I mean, the more mass you have, and obviously he wants it to be healthy, but
Yeah, right. I know
like
exactly what you're saying. I
yeah,
mean, the reality is like something doesn't come from nothing.
yes,
So people think like, okay, I want to get better. Like I want to jump higher and I want to run faster. What's like the number one thing that is associated with jumping higher? Being faster and like speed. Okay, so it's like, well, I want to get faster, and it's like, well, you're going to have to develop some sort of muscle fibers that are going to be new, that are going to help
yes,
you to get faster. And those muscle
absolutely,
fibers are not just going to like come from nothing. Like
right,
you have to like have building blocks to
hmm,
build those muscle fibers, and the building blocks are food. and
yes,
and, and the reality is if you're always in a caloric deficit, like
hmm,
every single time that you're training, guess what, you're probably going to get slower.
yes,
Like you're
you're
probably going
gonna,
to get slower, and then you're going to
uh-huh,
weigh less, so now
hmm,
you're going to have less mass, and you're
yep,
going to have less speed, and guess what's going to happen to your pole? You're going to drop down like 3 or 4 poles, because you're going to be skinny, you're
hmm,
going to be light, you're not going to have
yep,
any power, and
yeah,
you're going to be brittle too. Like
right,
that's the other thing too, is you
yes,
had mentioned injury is like, okay, if you are really like, if you are like Skeletor running down the runway, like you're going to be so brittle and you're probably
yep,
going to get injured too,
hmm,
you know?
100%. And I get it because like we live in a society that is like all girls in bathing suits and crop tops, and I get it. I mean, and I probably to some people sound like a hypocrite because I'm competing in a sports bra and shorty shorts, and like I get that. But my point is I I feel and look the best that I ever have by eating and by fueling myself. And my body is just a side product of like how I look aesthetically is is just a it's yeah, a byproduct of the work that I'm putting in. And my focus is I want to jump as high as I possibly can. And how do I do that? So by working hard, eating the right way, I'm going to jump high, but then my body is leaning out appropriately. And the thing is, your body will lean out as it's supposed to. Like I don't change my eating really throughout the year. Um, and it just as we go, it's leaned out as it's supposed to, I guess, if you want to
Right.
call it that. So I just had a very backwards logic. And as long as your, I guess, motivation isn't how you look, it's your results, that's all I want is that, like that's what I want fueling and motivating people.
Yeah, I mean, that is probably the easiest way to get out of that hole, is just be performance based.
Yeah.
Like if you're 100% performance based, it's like for me that it's this very similar thing to you. Like I was like a skeleton, and you know these things do like I was chuckling back, you know, whenever you were talking about the going out to dinner, and I
Yeah.
wasn't being insensitive, okay?
No,
I
yeah,
was
you're good.
chuckling because I was the same exact way. My
Yeah.
wife and I would go out to eat, and I would be on my fitness pal just like, hold on, nope, nope. Let's take one of those chicken wings away, and you know, like entering them all into my fitness pal, and just be like, doggone it, I got, you know,
Yeah.
only 3 carbs left, and
And
well,
then I'd be
can't do
so
that.
upset with myself if I like ate too much. And like it just,
Right.
you know, I it and here's the thing. There's a reason that poles have different flexes and weights, and like it doesn't matter what you weigh. Like
Mhm.
it doesn't matter. It like what matters is the poles that you get on and what you're able to do with it. And so if you weigh 140, 150, 160, it doesn't like they create poles for that. And
Right.
so it's just I I try not to really talk too much about what I weigh because it doesn't matter. But I did make a post recently about like eating more, and like I probably eat anywhere from 2,000 to 2,500 calories every day, maybe a little less if I'm on a rest day, but not because, oh, I'm not working out today, so I want to eat less. It's just maybe I'm just not as hungry. But
Right.
it's, I, I don't really know for sure how many I eat because I don't count calories anymore, but I do have a general idea. But the thought of sticking to 1,200 calories when like there are meals where I eat 1,200 calories in that, like it's crazy. Like it,
That is all
and
that that's next level for
I
sure.
get it. I've been there, but I just want people to at least if it can inspire someone to meet with a dietitian and figure out what the right like meal plan is for them, then that's all I want. Is like I don't want people just having these like numbers in their head that don't mean anything or don't come from a good source. And
Mhm.
if your coach isn't a dietitian, they shouldn't be giving you
True that.
specific numbers to hit. Like Brad will be like, "Oh, I think you should be around this," but he doesn't hound me on it. He never weighs me in. He's like, what are your weights at in the weight room?" Like that's, and so I just, if your coach isn't a dietitian, I and they're giving you specific numbers to be at and weighing you in, makes me a little concerned.
I stay away from that.
Yeah, especially in high school, like because that's where it can start so easily with a lot of girls in high school.
Yeah,
So
and
I
I
think
think
that's hard.
I can relate. I'm actually thinking of somebody in particular right now that's like it's that fixation on that number of calories, and you know this person, you know, it's just like I have to eat this many calories, and I think the responsible thing to do is if you've you know lost a significant amount of weight, what would you consider like a significant amount of weight? I'm just
I've
curious.
lost a significant amount of weight. I would say anywhere from 20 pounds up. It just depends,
Yeah.
like, on the person and their
If you're
frame.
vaulting and like you are like, wow, I've lost a
Uh,
significant amount, you know.
I would say even like 10 pounds would
I
be
would say 10. That's
significant.
exactly what I was gonna say.
It's
If
like,
you're doing that, you may want to talk to a dietitian or something like that, you
yes.
know.
Yeah. And I don't want to like criticize anyone because I've been there. Like I just want this information out there because no one talked about it when I was coming onto the scene, and I just felt very alone, and I'm like, oh, this is what they all do. Like
Hmm.
this has to be what they all do. But like it just isn't. So I want to show people that you can be successful and not obsess over how you're eating. And I could probably be a bit healthier with how I eat. I'm sure I could if I was meal planning and like I like to eat out a lot. I'm conscious of what I'm eating. I people need to be conscious of what they're putting in their body. Like we need to have good fuel. But as long as you're eating good food, good protein, good carbs, throwing in healthy fats, fruits and vegetables, like at every meal, then you're doing okay. Like
Yeah.
you don't need a whole lot
And
more.
as you get older too, you start to learn more about your body and be like, well, like
Yeah.
I completely, you know, I am a lot better when I'm
Yeah.
eating maybe more carbs or less carbs or whatever.
Yeah.
You get better at knowing your
Yeah.
body and things like that.
Like I perform the best, I think, the night before a competition on chicken and pasta of some sort. And
There you
like, but
go.
it took me years to kind of figure that out. So yeah, yeah, like I said, I just want to at least have the conversation out there so girls can see like, oh, you don't have to be crazy strict to be successful in this sport.
Yeah, and there also is, well, and I just wanted to mention this, that in my personal case, so I mentioned that I had jumped 550 at
Mm-hmm.
175, and
Yeah,
then like after going through like being, I would probably say borderline like eating issues,
yeah,
where I was
same.
addicted, like kind of to the MyFitnessPal and
Yep,
the certain number of calories and things like that.
100%.
After I got through that, and I was like, you know what, Jake Winder is going to look like Jake Winder. Like like I'm
Yeah,
never going to look like this person or this person or this person. Like, and it goes deeper than me. It's just a self-confidence thing. It's like, listen, man, like you can try all you want to look like this person and you will never look like them. You're always going to look like you, and you got to be okay with what you look like. And as soon as I made that turn and I rounded that curve, I was like, you know what, I'm I'm happy with where I am, and maybe
absolutely.
I won't ever have that, like that super cut up, a six pack abs, a big biceps, and this, that, and the other, or may not be
Yeah,
able to lift as much as this person. As soon as I was like, you know what, I'm cool with that, man. It's whatever. All of a
it's so,
sudden, I put on 10 pounds, and then I
yeah,
PR'd by
yeah,
5 centimeters. And I
there
was
you
like,
go.
so it really does, it really helps if you are just on your path and you stay
Mhm.
on your path, and
Yeah.
you don't veer off, man. Don't look at these other things. Just stay on your path and do you.
It's so true because yeah, I have a very different build than Mary, Sandy, Jen. Like we all have different builds, but I was looking at them as like I need to look like them. Well, I'm never gonna look like them because my torso is like 3 inches long. Like they have these long lean torsos, and I was always like, oh, I just want to look like that. It's like I hate to break it to you, Katie, but your bones, like the way your body's set up, you're not gonna look like that. But that doesn't mean you can't like I just thought that meant like just wasn't gonna look very good. And it's like,
Yeah. And the other thing too is whenever somebody sees somebody who is confident in their body, that looks good to other people. Like people
yeah,
will be like, wow, that person, like they are confident in the skin that they're in, and that is attractive. Like, and that is like, that is really a good thing, and people can totally see that in
yeah.
somebody, you know.
And every single person, including the ones I looked up to, had something about themselves they were self-conscious about. And that helped me to kind of realize, oh, like I see them as perfect, but they're, you know, self-conscious about something on their body. It's like, okay, maybe my maybe I'm flawed here. Like
Right.
maybe my logic is flawed here. So
For
yeah,
sure.
I definitely have my days where I'm like, oof, like, but it's my body allows me to do what I love and it allows me to jump high. And so I want to make sure I'm constantly doing everything I can to keep jumping high. And that requires eating a certain way.
It allowed you to smoke over 492, so that's nice.
With some bar love.
Yeah, right. Not that much. It was a good jump.
Thanks.
All right. So we're, we want to, respect your time and everything, but
Yeah, can talk forever. It's a
there
problem.
there was one more thing I wanted to talk about the body image thing, and then I
Yeah.
wanted to just ask you a couple maybe rapid fire questions.
Yeah.
So another thing is, in young women that I see sometimes, it's like, hey, like we're really trying to, work on getting your hips over your shoulders and your rock back. Like, have you been doing like the swinging boopkas and the boopkas and stuff? And they're like, no. It's like, well,
Oh.
why not? It's like, well, I don't want to get big. Like,
Oh
what
no.
or like, I'm
Oh
not gonna
no.
lift legs. I'm not gonna lift legs because then I'm gonna get big.
No, lift
What do you
legs
say to
because it gives
that?
you a butt. No, here's the thing, like I feel like to be a good pole vaulter, you have to lift. Like you just because it will make you stronger, it will make you faster, it will get you on bigger poles that will toss you higher. And so I get that, but you just have to figure out what your motivation is. And if your motivation is to jump as high as you can, it don't worry about how you look. Because actually, I mean, you're gonna look good. Even
Mhm.
like quote unquote big, you're gonna be fit. Like you're like
Right.
you're still going to look good and healthy. That's the bit like, and healthy looks different on everybody. So like when I lift, I'm gonna look very different than, you know, my training partner Robin, who's doing the same lifting, or KB that's doing the same lifting. We just have different body types, but we all look good, like in our own way. And so it's just finding that motivation of like, what what's your purpose here? Are you here to jump as high as you can, or is your purpose here to just stay in shape for looking a certain way? Like,
For
and if
Instagram.
that's the case, like then if that's your goal, power to you. I would hope that it's not, but I can't fault anyone for that. But yeah, I think lifting is crucial. That's something that I added with Brad, just much heavier lifting, Olympic lifting, explosive lifting, that really did change things for me.
Right.
And you know, it changed my body in a way that aesthetically I'm like, cool, I feel like I look better than I ever have. And that's from lifting. That it burns so many calories, and like it jump, like when you're doing cleans, when you're doing Olympic lifting, like your metabolism like kind of jump starts. And so I think if your purpose is to look good, like lifting's actually going to help to do that.
For
So
sure.
yeah, I mean, it's a tough conversation to have, and I think it's tricky. And I encourage coaches really to not focus on weight on young athletes, especially. But I mean, with what we do, with there's weight labels on the poles, so I get it. But I think,
Yeah, it's a hard one.
and I
That
think with girls especially, they're like, well, if I'm on a bigger pole, then I'm fatter or whatever. It's like, no, that's not what that means, because you still have to put enough force into you have to be fast enough to move that pole. So actually, there's a good chance you're leaner and more powerful. Like it's so yeah, it's a tough conversation, but it's ultimately it's, you know, what do you want out of the sport? And if you want to be the best you can be, lifting's is is pretty
yeah,
important.
it is. And you know, if you don't know how human physiology works, I mean, if you do a few sets of bubkas once or twice a week and a few power cleans once or twice a week, you're not going to look like a female bodybuilder. Like
Uh-uh.
it's
Look at
not.
Sandy. She does bubkas all the time, and she is as lean as you can get. Like, I mean, like she looks amazing. But like it's, if you look at any of the elite female pole vaulters, we're all doing bubkas. We're all doing like bar work. We're all lifting. We're all, and so it's like, are you
Right.
saying we look big? Like, what are you saying?
Uh, well, and that's the thing is it's like, you know, you I think it all boils down to both of those things that you had mentioned or that we had talked about, you know, the being too thin and then the getting too muscular or too big, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Both of those things are solved with being performance based. Like
Yes.
just if your goal is to pole vault higher, you know, that needs to be your goal and that needs to be the metric that you're going by.
Yes.
And if you're going by that metric, it's probably going to lead you in the right direction. So
Yeah.
in my opinion,
No,
but
absolutely. I agree.
okay, here we go. If you were to pick one character trait that has gotten you to where you are at today, what would it be?
Character trait. I hate to lose. So I guess just I hate to lose. So anytime especially I finish a season like on a low note, which has been most of my seasons in the past, like that's just, yeah. So that's probably the character. I'm stubborn. I'm
Competitiveness,
competitive, and I'm
stubbornness.
stubborn.
Okay,
I
yeah,
just want to
no.
keep proving that I can like keep being
Yeah,
better.
yeah. No, I get it. All right, what is the strongest part of your vault?
My run.
your run. I was gonna say the same
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
for you.
I do a lot of
Yeah.
other things wrong, but my run saves me.
Well, and I mean, we always tell our athletes, the run and the takeoff is 90% of the vault. Like if you have a good run and a good takeoff, we can clean up the top end, but that run and takeoff is
Mhm.
so important.
Everything
So
on top happens as a result of like, the arms and like, yeah, that speed. It's the pole vault is a transfer of energy. So where do you create that energy? It's in the run.
right, for sure, for sure.
And,
All right, this one's gonna be tough.
right.
If you could only pick two exercises to do for the rest of your career, besides pole vaulting, so you get to still jump, once or twice a week, whatever you do, but you could only do two other things outside of pole vaulting, what would they be?
Am I picking this based on what I actually like or what's good for my vaulting?
What's good for your vaulting?
um, can I say lifting as a whole or just like one
Oh,
exercise in
no, no,
particular?
no, no, no. You
Oh, okay.
cannot say lifting as a whole. It's got to be
Okay.
one exercise.
Um, cleans. That
Okay, I like that.
impulse is like a very similar, like when it's kind of a heavier weight, you're not sure if you're going to get it. That's the same kind of impulse as like hitting a takeoff. Maybe on a pole you haven't quite that on. So that has created a lot of confidence for me in doing Olympic liftings, but I really like cleans. Um, and then I'm between like squats and then just like sprint workouts. But I think I'm gonna pick sprint workouts so that I have it
Yeah,
tracked.
that's
And
what I would pick too. Good.
I was because the cleans you get strong in the legs because it's a jump. So
Yeah.
I would say sprint work. Yeah.
Yeah, so that reinforces that the run and takeoff is 90% of the vault. If those are the two that you would pick, that's it, man. You got to be fast, and
Yeah.
that's really important. And you did mention about like the clean. So are you talking about cleaning from the floor?
Hang cleans or
Okay,
pull
either
cleans.
either or.
Either or. I've done a lot of hang cleans lately, but like from the ground are good too. Like clean pulls, especially like just like that's a good place to start before
Yeah.
getting into like clean cleans. But
For sure.
yeah,
But that you talked about like that gearing up and like that middle phase of whenever you're pulling that weight and you're feeling like, wow, this is a heavy weight. This is a heavy weight. And here comes where I throw my hips.
yep,
And it is the same exact feeling of
yep,
like, okay, I have to sell out on this and I have to go for it. And it really is like a mental, a very good mental comparison to, taking off on a brand new pole and rocking back on it.
yep.
That
It's
is,
a similar impulse
yeah,
that initial hit at the takeoff and that like when you throw your hips up into it, like they're obviously not the same motion, but I feel like I've created, obviously it's got me stronger, but mentally that's created a lot of strength and
commitment
confidence.
to it because you
Yes.
have to commit to it like at
Yes.
that moment. And I really like that. That is really, really good comparison. All right. Last question.
Okay.
Who has had the biggest influence on you in your life as a person? Doesn't have to be pole vaulting or anything.
Mm, it's really hard.
I know.
Oh wow.
It can be two.
It can be two. All right. Well then I have to pick my parents because my dad passed away when I was 16, but he was my biggest supporter. I mean, other than my mom, who's number two. But uh he just knew how talented I was, athletic I was. So he was the one that put me in golf lessons. He was the one that took me to every practice. Like he would come to all my basketball practices. He would put me in private lessons for pitching, like fast pitch. And so he was the one that got me into my private lessons in pole vault too. So he just wanted me to succeed in whatever I did, and then like my mom after he passed away, just my mom is phenomenal and just so supportive, and she never really was like, okay, when are you going to get a real job? Like she supported me financially and emotionally, like for the 5 years that I didn't have a contract out of college. And so, and just I mean, just seeing how strong she is, and like she lost her husband and she just kept going for us, me, my brother, and my sister, and like that just puts things into perspective, like of like you have to be pretty tough to do that, but also like this is life. You got to keep rolling with the punches. And so, yeah, definitely those two.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's
Yeah.
wow, that's wild. Well,
Yeah.
you have that in you too, as your
No,
mom.
thanks.
So that's
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. That's pretty amazing.
Nice.
But yeah, I can't thank you enough for doing this.
Oh, thank you. This is
At the
fun.
beginning, when we were kind of off the air there, we were talking, and I just thought I would share that story from that girl at my club. They were like, she's like, I really want to talk. I want you to have Katie on the show,
It's so cute.
and she said, and I said, well, why do you want to have Katie on the show? And she said, she just seems like a good person.
No,
And I think that
that
is
makes me so happy.
that's pretty outstanding. It doesn't get too much better than that. So that just shows that even without, knowing you, personally, people just that's the type of person that you're projecting out to the world. So it's pretty cool.
Which is, I mean, that's even better than jumping high. So if I can do that and jump high, that's pretty cool.
All right. Well, really appreciate it. And then actually, you want to share some places where people can kind of follow you?
Yeah. So Instagram's probably the best. That's where I keep up with the most, I would say. It's just KTNAGO13. And I am on TikTok now.
Woo!
Just
I thought that was
uh,
getting shut down.
actually, no, it sounds like it's saved. So yay. That one's just Katie Nageotte, but Twitter, KTNAGO13. I do have a blog. I haven't been on quite a bit, but it's I think Wix is the I think it's up in the link in my bio on my Instagram, but I'll sometimes do some blog posts on there. But yeah.
Cool. Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. And this is the One More Jump podcast signing off. All right. You crushed it. That was
Cool.
awesome. That was some incredible,
That was
incredible
fun.
conversation. You